This is Dr. Shanmugapriya for the Speed Learning app, and I'm here to discuss about protein separation techniques. So this is one topic which everybody should have a clear-cut idea about, because they often ask you questions on this. Once they asked you in paper chromatography, the amino acid which moves fastest is. And then they asked you SDS page separates proteins based on. Your answer should be molecular weight. And then there was this complex question. A protein was run through SDS page, giving rise to a band corresponding to 100 kilodalton. After treating the same protein with mercaptoethanol, the protein started giving rise to two bands corresponding to 20 and 30 kilodalton. What is your comment on the protein? Is the protein a monomer? Is it a dimer? Or is it a trimer? Or is it a tetramer? And then there was a picture-based question showing you a column which is basically a cation exchange column, and they were asking you what type of technique or which technique is it. So for you to answer such questions, you need to be very clear about all these protein separation techniques. First, what are the properties based on which we can separate proteins? Proteins can be separated based on, number one, size. So proteins can be separated based on size. They can be separated based on charge. They can be separated based on molecular weight. We have techniques which separate proteins based on isoelectric pH, and finally based on affinity. So if you are trying to separate proteins, these are the properties which you can exploit. You can separate proteins based on number one, size, number two, charge, number three, molecular weight, isoelectric pH, and finally affinity. Now, which technique separates proteins based on size? That is size exclusion or gel filtration chromatography. So which technique separates protein based on size? It is size exclusion chromatography, otherwise called as gel filtration chromatography. So first let me tell you what is chromatography, and then I'll tell you about this specific type of chromatography. So chromatography is a separation technique. The first word which you need to know, or the first term which you need to know is, it's a separation technique wherein you separate solutes. Yeah, we separate solutes based on differential distribution of them between a mobile phase and a stationary phase. So even if you don't understand the definition for now, we all know that in any chromatographic separation there will always be a mobile phase and a stationary phase. We know that, right? In that case, depending upon whether a solute has got an affinity to a mobile phase or to a stationary phase, the solute either moves faster or it gets retarded. Yeah, logically, if a solute has got an affinity to mobile phase, it moves faster. If a solute has got an affinity to stationary phase, it gets retarded. That way, you're capable of separating two solutes. So what is chromatography? Chromatography is a separation technique wherein you separate solutes based on differential distribution of them between a mobile phase and a stationary phase. And the simplest chromatographic separation is a paper chromatography. And I would say that this paper chromatography is obsolete. Yeah, it's nowhere being used. And the only place wherein paper chromatography is still in use is, you won't believe me, the only place where it is still in use is, it's a part of MD Biochemistry practical exam. Okay, so that outdated techniques are our syllabuses. So for this paper chromatography, we are given 50 marks. And all that we are expected to do is, we are expected to take Whatman paper number 1, and we'll have to cut this Whatman paper number 1 in exact dimensions of 30 cross 35 centimeter. The base will be 30 centimeter, the height will be 35 centimeter. And then 5 centimeter from the base, you are supposed to mark a line. And on this line, you are supposed to mark a dot. And on this dot, we have to add the amino acid mixture, which is to be separated using a capillary tube. So if we are given a complex amino acid solution mixture, We use a capillary tube, we take the solution in the capillary tube and then we add it drop by drop onto the dot which is placed on the paper. Okay, so after amino acid mixture is added to the dot, we should tie the paper. You know that the paper has got two edges. So you'll have to bring both the edges together. You'll have to tie it with the needle and thread. So after you tie it with needle and thread, this is how the paper would look. So this is how it looks. And this is where you have drawn the line. And this is where you have marked the dot. And here you have added the amino acid mixture which needs to be separated. Now you place this paper on a petri dish. You must have seen a petri dish, right? The one which is used for applying colonies, E. coli colony plate. So a bigger version of that will be used. So it is placed on a petri dish. And this petri dish will be filled with the solvent that is used for amino acid separation. And the solvent that is used for amino acid separation is N-butanol, acetic acid and water. When they can ask you in paper chromatography which amino acid moves the fastest, they can even ask you this. So what is the solvent that is used for separating amino acids? It's N-butanol, acetic acid and water. So out of these three components, do you see that water is polar? And your paper is also polar. So the moment you place the paper on this petri dish, because water is polar, water forms a thin coating on the paper quickly. Yeah, it forms a thin coating on the paper. After which N-butanol and acetic acid, though they are non-polar, because of capillary action, you know, paper has got fibers and between fibers there is a capillary action which is going on. So because of the capillary action, N-butanol and acetic acid start moving on the paper. And when they are moving and when they cross the line on which you have applied the amino acid mixture, they try to take along with them some amino acids. Okay, now what type of amino acid do you think they will be capable of taking along with them? I told you they are non-polar. So what will they take along? When you know they are non-polar, they'll take along with them only non-polar amino acids because of hydrophobic interaction. So which amino acid do you think will move fastest? The most non-polar would move the fastest and will be present away from the point of application. And if it's an amino acid which is polar, you know the stationary phase is polar. What is the stationary phase here? So let me write this down. In paper chromatography, mobile phase. In paper chromatography for amino acid separation, mobile phase is N-butanol plus acetic acid, both of which are non-polar. So mobile phase is non-polar. And which acts as a stationary phase? Stationary phase is paper and water. So it's basically a polar stationary phase. And because the mobile phase is non-polar, which would move the fastest? Non-polar amino acid will move the fastest. And the stationary phase is a polar phase. So polar amino acid will be held close to the point of application. That way, based on polarity, you have separated all amino acids. The most polar amino acid will be present close to the point of application. As the non-polar nature increases, they move and they are present away from the point of application. So in paper chromatography, which amino acid moves the fastest? If that's the question, it means they are asking you of the following which is the most non-polar. And that's why I told you when we discussed amino acid chemistry, I told you the non-polar nature increases as you go down the list of non-polar amino acids. And I told you glycine, alanine, valine, leucine, isoleucine and methionine is the sequence. Okay, so all that you need to know about paper chromatography is it is used for separating amino acid mixtures, it's used for separating carbohydrate mixture. And for separating amino acid mixture, the solvent that is used is N-butanol, acetic acid and water. And what is the mobile phase here? The mobile phase is N-butanol and acetic acid, which is non-polar, which is the stationary phase, paper and water, which is polar. So more polar amino acids will be retarded, more non-polar amino acids will move faster. And remember, the same paper chromatography can also be used for separating carbohydrates. But if it's used for separating carbohydrates, the solvent that is used is isopropyl alcohol and water. For carbohydrate separation, the solvent that is used is isopropyl alcohol and water. Okay, that's all about paper chromatography. And this paper chromatography is a planar separation technique, because here the separation happens on a planar surface. Whereas the size exclusion or gel filtration chromatography, which I told you, size exclusion or gel filtration chromatography, which I told you separates proteins based on size, that is a column chromatographic separation technique. Because in this technique you use as a stationary phase, a column which is filled with synthetic polymer beads. Have you worked with a burette? In your school you must have worked with a burette with which you did titration, right? So that burette is the column that is used, and this column is filled with synthetic polymer beads. And these beads have pores. They have holes or pores. And the radius of these pores will be measured as Stokes radius. Let me show you pores with blue circles. So they have pores, and the radius of these pores will be measured as Stokes radius. Now what will happen when you pour the complex protein mixture? When you pour the complex protein mixture, any protein size of which is larger than the pore size cannot get into the pores. So they move happily between beads and they come down. Whereas any protein size of which is smaller than the pore will get into those pores. If the pore size is smaller than if the protein size is smaller than the pore size, the protein gets into those pores, gets retarded there. And then slowly it comes out, gets retarded in the next pore. Comes out, gets retarded in the next pore. So smaller proteins get retarded in the top layer. Larger proteins cannot get into those pores, so they happily move between beads. It's not a tightly packed column. So between beads there will be space. In those interbead distance, larger proteins come down faster. So which protein comes down faster in a size exclusion or gel filtration chromatography? It's quite contrary to your expectation. Which protein comes down faster? Larger protein comes down faster. Had I not told you the principle of size exclusion or gel filtration chromatography, had I just told you that this is a technique which separates proteins based on size, and if I am asking you which protein comes down faster, you tend to answer it as smaller protein, right? But it's quite contrary to your expectation. Which protein comes down faster? Larger protein comes down faster in size exclusion or gel filtration chromatography. So if you are asked which technique separates proteins based on size, your answers should be size exclusion or gel filtration chromatography. Okay, so that's about a technique which separates protein based on size. Now what are the techniques which separate proteins based on charge? And for this we have two techniques. One is ion exchange chromatography and the other one is electrophoresis. So what are the two techniques which separate proteins based on charge? One is ion exchange chromatography, the other one is electrophoresis. So let me first tell you about ion exchange chromatography. I want you to know that there are two types of ion exchange chromatography. One is cation exchange chromatography, the other one is anion exchange chromatography. And listen to this, you use cation exchange chromatography if the protein of interest to you is a cation. So use anion exchange chromatography when the protein of interest to you is an anion. Now in cation exchange chromatography, the basic concept is, or in any chromatography for that matter, not just cation exchange or anion exchange or size exclusion, whatever type it is, in chromatography generally the basic concept is anything which is of interest to you, yeah, anything which you want will be first retarded onto the stationary phase, so that anything which you don't want, which you consider as impurities, come down faster. So after you have removed all impurities, you get back what you want from the stationary phase by a technique called as elution. Do you understand this? In any chromatographic separation, what do? Anything which is of interest to us will be first retarded onto the stationary phase, so that anything which we don't want, which we consider as impurities, come down faster. After you have removed all impurities, you get back what you want from the stationary phase by a technique called as elution. And I told you, use cation exchange chromatography when the protein of interest to you is a cation. So what should you do to the cation? You should retard the cation onto the stationary phase. Okay, you should retard the cation onto the stationary phase. How can you retard the cation onto the stationary phase? Only when the stationary phase is an anion. Isn't that logical? To retard your cation, the stationary phase has to be an anion. So in cation exchange chromatography, as a stationary phase, you will use a column which is filled with synthetic polymer beads which are covalently attached to negatively charged groups. I am showing you groups as in blue color. So these beads are covalently attached to negatively charged groups like carboxyl group or sulfate group or phosphate group. Okay. Now what will happen when you pour the complex protein mixture? When you pour the complex protein mixture, anything which is positively charged, that is what you want, yeah, anything which is positively charged will be held on to the stationary phase. Yeah, anything which is positively charged will be held on to the stationary phase, whereas anything which is negatively charged will be repelled and it comes down first. So after you have removed all anions, after you have removed what you don't want, yeah, how will you get back what you want from the stationary phase? I told you it's done by elution, and elution is just a process. And how you elute differs depending upon what is the technique that is used. So in cation exchange chromatography, for elution, you fill the column with an alkaline buffer. In cation exchange chromatography, you will fill the column with an alkaline buffer. What will happen when you fill the column with alkaline buffer? All these proteins will sense the alkaline pH. Yeah, all these proteins sense the alkaline pH and they try to neutralize the alkaline pH. How can they neutralize the alkaline pH? By giving off their H+. Okay, when they give off their H+, will they be any more positively charged? No. Right? When they are no more positively charged, will they interact with the stationary phase? No. So they come down along with the alkaline buffer. So let me repeat what is cation exchange chromatography. And then you will have to be able to tell me about anion exchange chromatography. So when do you use cation exchange chromatography? When the protein of interest to you is a cation, for which you should retard the cation onto the stationary phase first. How can you retard the cation onto the stationary phase? Only when the stationary phase is an anion. So in cation exchange chromatography, you will use as a stationary phase a column which is filled with synthetic polymer beads which are covalently attached to negatively charged groups. Example for negatively charged groups will be carboxyl group or sulfate group or phosphate group. Any acidic group should be attached to the stationary phase. So when you pour the complex protein mixture, anything which is positively charged will be held on to the stationary phase, so that anything which is negatively charged will be repelled and it comes down first. After you have removed all anions, how will you get back cations from the stationary phase? That's done by elution. What do you do in elution? You pour an alkaline buffer. The moment you pour alkaline buffer, all these proteins which are held on to the stationary phase, they try to neutralize the alkaline pH. How do they neutralize alkaline pH? By giving off their H+. When they give off their H+, they are no more positively charged. They can no more interact with the stationary phase. So they come down along with alkaline buffer. So example for cation exchange column. Yeah, example for cation exchange column is carboxy methyl saccharose. Example is carboxy methyl saccharose. What does it mean? Methyl saccharose tells you about the bead. Beads are made up of methyl saccharose. Carboxy methyl saccharose tells you that the bead is attached to carboxyl group, negatively charged group. Okay, so C for C. Example for cation exchange is carboxy methyl saccharose. Now try to tell me about anion exchange chromatography. We use anion exchange chromatography when the protein of interest to us is an anion. So what should you do to the anion? You will have to retard the anion onto the stationary phase. How can you retard the anion onto the stationary phase? Only when the stationary phase is a cation. So in anion exchange chromatography, as a stationary phase, you use a column which is filled with synthetic polymer beads which are covalently attached to positively charged groups. Yeah, they should be attached to positively charged groups like quaternary ammonium groups. You know, quaternary ammonium groups are positively charged. So when you pour the complex protein mixture, when you pour the complex protein mixture, anything which is negatively charged will be held back onto the stationary phase. Any anion that is the protein of interest to you will be held on to the stationary phase. And anything which is positively charged will be repelled and they come down first. So what has got collected down? All positively charged proteins which you consider as impurities have come down first. So after you have removed all impurities, how will you get back what you want from the stationary phase? By elution. What do you do in elution of anion exchange chromatography? In cation exchange chromatography, if you pour an alkaline buffer, in anion exchange chromatography, you will have to pour an acidic buffer. So when you pour an acidic buffer, main aim of your protein is to neutralize the acidic pH. How can they neutralize the acidic pH? By getting the H+. When they get H+, they are no more negatively charged. They can no more interact with stationary phase, so they come down. An example for anion exchange column. Yeah, example for anion exchange column is diethyl aminoethyl saccharose or cellulose. So all that you need to observe here is there is an amino group which is a quaternary ammonium group which is positively charged. So it will act as anion exchange column. I am giving you examples for cation exchange column and anion exchange column because as you start performing a research, if you want a cation, you cannot go and say I want a cation exchange column to a manufacturer. Because the manufacturer will not even know what does it mean, will not know what is cation exchange, what is anion exchange. All that he knows is, okay, my column has got a carboxyl group. You use it for whatever you want. So you will have to know that the example for cation exchange chromatography is carboxy methyl saccharose. Example for anion exchange column is diethyl aminoethyl saccharose or cellulose. So that is all about one technique which separates protein based on charge. So what is that technique? It is ion exchange chromatography. So what is the other technique which separates protein based on charge? It is electrophoresis.